The July 14, 2015 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
I am here.
Mr. Ansello. Here. Ms. Andrews. Mr. Baroth. Ms. Boyce. Dr. Carbone. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mr. Delahanty. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Haney. Mr. Howland. Ms. Cayley. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Mr. Marionetti. Mr. Michike. Mr. Morelli. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mrs. Stick. Ms. Taylor. Mr. Turp. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Yolovich.
Good to see a full house tonight. Before we get started, I would like to welcome our newest legislator, Matt Turp, who's sitting in the back corner over there. Matt, your first meeting. Congratulations. I believe you're well-versed in all the rules, Robert's rules and all that, and you'll be ready to participate tonight? Perfect. There's a quiz later on, yes. At this time, please stay seated. I would like to introduce Pastor Christopher Holdridge of the 441 Ministry, who's been invited here tonight by Legislator Debbie Draw. It's all yours, Pastor.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. Would you please pray with me? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be here together this evening. Lord, your word teaches us that we are to pray for our officials and for those who have authority over us. And so, Lord, we pray for this body as they gather this evening, that they would take their role seriously, that they would be committed with passion to the good of our county. Lord, even as they consider, make the transition from their daily activities into this room this evening, that a change would come over them, that they would be deeply concerned with the needs of the citizens in our county. Lord, your word also tells us that the lot is cast, but every decision is from the Lord. None of these individuals in this room are here by their own doing. None of them ultimately are even here because of a vote, but they are there because you have placed them in the seats where they are sitting. So God, I pray for them. Many of them are working 2 or more jobs. They are leading households. They are holding together their families, taking care of children or elderly parents or neighbors. And they are serving us here this evening as well. So Lord, give them the strength that they need to do the work that you've called them here to do this evening. Make their minds sharp. Give them soft hearts, ears to hear the voices of the people who are here to express themselves, and deep concern for our county and our city. Lord, you gave a commandment to the first people to have dominion over this world. And as we gather this evening, we see in our own little corner of Western civilization this gathered body of elected officials whose job it is at the foundation to create, to make, to protect culture. So, Lord, be with them. And even as your word unfolds and we see that sin entered the world, we realize that part of having dominion, part of making and protecting culture is to restrain evil. And so even as they discuss initiatives relative to the great things going on in our county, Lord, we pray that you would give them the passion and the concern to restrain the evil that we know is here. Give them the courage to do that, I pray. And Lord, if there's one thing that is consistent throughout all of your word, the Old and New Testament, in every epoch, is your command to care for the poor. Lord, may we not neglect the poor, whether they're the rural poor or they're the urban poor, whether they're poor because they didn't work hard enough or whether they're poor because of greed and tyranny of those who lord it over them. Lord, make it a deep concern of this body to uphold the poor and take care of them. We pray for all these proceedings this evening. We pray for clarity of speech for those who will speak. We pray for open ears for those who will be listening. We pray for discernment as debates are held, conversations are had, and votes are made. And we pray for passion, Lord, that you would fill these folks with love for their county and for the people that live here. Pray all these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Legislator Joe Carbone will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Carbone. You've received a copy of the Journal of Day 7, June 9, 2015. Without exception, that journal will stand approved as submitted. There's a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those who are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire at the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic devices in your possession, I would request that you make it inaudible for the duration of the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, the referrals for the next legislative cycle are in your folders at this time. I would now like to take the moment here to introduce from our Parks Department, Mark Quinn, who will introduce to us today the plant of the month. Mark?
Good evening. Thank you. Plant of the month this month is marigolds. We think, well, we've all grown marigolds, perhaps a little maybe mundane, boring. Well, there's good reason we grow marigolds. They're easy to grow. If you can't grow marigolds, maybe it's time to go to plastic. These things are about as durable as you can possibly get. When you come home vacation in the summer after you've ignored them for a week and a half, a couple of the flowers that are actually alive in your garden are marigolds. We probably grow as annuals more marigolds than we do any other annual. And again, it's because they're cheap, they're easy, and they're very durable. They do have some interesting facts. They can be anywhere from 6 inches tall to about 4 feet tall, depending on variety. They are an annual, although there are some perennials, but we don't grow them as perennials. Interestingly, all the flowers are edible. Only some of them actually taste good, apparently, and I haven't tried any of those, so I won't recommend them one way or another. They actually put the yellows of marigolds in chicken food a lot to increase the yellow color in the yolks. They're used in numerous places in the food industry as food coloring because of their bright yellow coloring. They have a lot of medicinal properties that are being investigated. And again, what I really like about marigolds is just they're plain tough. If you put them in a nice sunny location, probably the last flowers in the fall that get hit by the frost are the marigolds and the mums. So everything else, the first light frost gets them. Marigolds are really pretty tough. So they're really nice flowers to have in your garden, and you think, okay, maybe a little boring, but no, they're really always bright. They flower all summer long. If you deadhead them back a little bit, they'll continue to flower from about now right through the first real hard frost or freeze. So again, anybody can grow them. They're great flowers in the garden. Thanks.
Super. Thanks, Mark. This evening, there are several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk?
Would Jean Kakamis please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Carla F. Boyce and Dr. Joe Carbone. Whereas Jean Kakamas has proudly served our community for many years. As the head of Bricklayers Local 3, Jean has been an integral part of maintaining the productivity and quality of work done by our craftsmen. And whereas the Bricklayers Union was in desperate need of a strong leader when Jean rose to his position. Membership was waning and contracts were left unsigned, leaving the average worker without a way to earn their income. Jean knew it was his duty to create a better environment for the bricklayers and left his position as fund manager to run for president of the union. Jean got to know workers from all over the union's jurisdiction to understand their needs. And whereas Jean was successful in his election and has never looked back, he has turned the Bricklayers Union into one of the most successful in our state and ensured fairness for all of its members. Jean has truly shown that he is a great leader not only among craftsmen but in our county as well. And whereas Jean's dedication to fellow craftsmen in our area is unparalleled, his hard work and leadership will be missed during his retirement. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Carla F. Boyce, Legislator District 5, and Dr. Joe Carbone, Legislator District 16, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Jean Kakamas on his impressive years of service in our community. Congratulations.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with the county, and I've got friends on both sides of the aisle. How are you? But listen, you know, I was born and raised in Monroe County, and me and my wife recently built a new house. We decided not to retire in God's waiting room, so we decided to stay in Mendon, and so we'll be there for the rest of our lives with 15 grandkids running around. And but thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Would representatives from the Fairport men's tennis team please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Sean Delahanty and Dorothy Stick.
Just me.
Whereas it is the sense of this legislature to congratulate athletic teams achieving significant victories and bringing honor and respect to this county through their endeavors on the field of play. And whereas attendant to such concern and in full accord with long-standing tradition, this legislature is justly proud to honor the Fairport men's tennis team, winners of the Section 5 Class AA title. And whereas coached by Teresa Metcalf, herself a 2015 Co-Coach of the Year on Thursday, May 21st, 2015, Eric Mountain triumphed with a score of 7-6, 6-1 at second singles, while Alex Bush and Greg Jubert attained victory at first doubles with a score of 4-6, 6-1, 7-5, propelling the number 1 ranked Red Raiders to victory and the title over number 3 Webster Schrader. And whereas the team's success is not limited to the tennis court, the gentlemen of the team achieved a team academic average for the spring semester of 94.56, the highest in their district, helping to earn them the honor of being named a New York State Scholar Athlete team. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Sean Delahanty, Legislator District 11, and Dorothy Stick, Legislator District 18, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature on this 14th day of July 2015, do hereby honor the Fairport men's tennis team and present to the members of the team and their coach a copy of this proclamation. Suitably engrossed. Congratulations.
Good evening. I'm Terry Metcalf. I know it's odd to see a female coaching a male sport, so there's only 2 of us actually who coach in the female as a female with a male sport, but I also coach girls varsity tennis as well in Fairport. So it's my second year as the varsity coach, but I have done 6 years with the JV. And many of these gentlemen that you see before you, Mark Gabriel, our captain, Chris Gavert, #1 doubles player and singles player, Christian Erickson, he was our #1 singles player, also made it to this, almost to the state qualifiers, pretty close. We were almost there, third try. Kevin Patterson, also a senior, singles and a strong doubles player, and Raj Machirla, who is a singles player. And so these gentlemen, and I push the academics because I'm a teacher in the district, and to hold on to that GPA through your season, I think the gentlemen realized that they had to gather their thoughts and use their time wisely, but to also perform on the tennis court like they did was outstanding. The tennis in the Rochester area is very, very strong. Anyone who comes out of our Section 5 tennis program has the capabilities of playing at a minimum of a D3 school at the college level. So it is a very impressive tennis community. I'd like to thank Ms. Stick and Mr. Delhante for representing us and encouraging us and for this invitation and this honor. So thank you very much.
Would Jody Siegel please come forward, also President Jeffrey R. Adair, and legislators Carrie Andrews and Justin Wilcox. Whereas, it is the sense of this legislature to congratulate individuals who have reached the end of long and significant careers in service to others. And whereas, attendant to such concern and in full accord with long-standing tradition, this legislature is justly proud to honor Jody Siegel, the Executive Director of the Monroe County School Boards Association, as she plans her retirement at the end of July 2015. And whereas, as a strong advocate for public schools, Jody Siegel has been one of the most prominent, eloquent, and courageous voices speaking on behalf of the schools of Monroe County. Her unique position required expertise in issues urban, suburban, and rural regarding districts large and small, and affecting the incredibly diverse student body of this county. And whereas county and state officials came to deeply respect Jody Siegel as, above all, an individual whose passion for her work was driven by her deep and abiding sense of duty to provide the children of this county with the highest quality education possible, who worked to ensure that the support of public education was always a priority. And whereas, considering the enormous impact access to high-quality public schools has on where families with children decide to live, it is no exaggeration to state that Jody Siegel's work has seriously improved Monroe County's ability to attract and retain young professionals and continue to offer an excellent quality of life to its residents. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Carrie M. Andrews, Minority Leader, and Justin F. Wilcox, Legislator District 14, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Jody Siegel and present her a copy of this proclamation, suitably engrossed. Congratulations.
Oh my, that was really moving. I want to thank you very much. When I first announced my retirement, I really didn't anticipate the kind of response it has generated from people in the community and organizations that I have worked with. And at first I was like, oh, pshaw. You know, I was just doing what I believed in. But what I really realized is that when I became a school board member and subsequently the director at MCSBA, what I wanted to do was be able to make a difference in the world. I'm sure you all know that feeling because you're public servants and you get into this and you want to make a difference. What is amazing and very touching to me is that at the end of my career, at this point, receiving a proclamation like this tells me that people think I did make a difference. and that is exceedingly gratifying. So thank you very much, and my best to all of you as you carry on the important work of making life better here in Monroe County. Thank you.
For one last time, would Legislator Carmen Gamina please step forward? I really thought that I was gearing up my last year as being president, which was going to be in December, that I was going to be doing these plaques. And I know that when I start doing them, especially this year, after being here as long as I've been here, that I am going to start to get emotional. Then all of a sudden, Carmen leaves. So I have to be ready tonight. And I just want to say, as president, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve with you. I believe that all my colleagues here will say the same thing as far as you being a fair and compassionate person, and that when you stepped into this arena here, you came in with both your feet and you were ready to work. And that is, as the pastor put it tonight when he was speaking and all that, that's what we do, because all of us here have other jobs. And unbeknownst to other people, they think that we don't. But Carmen did, and Carmen followed the love of his life, which is the Webster Central School District. And I don't want him to leave. No offense, Matt, but I thought a couple times of refusing his resignation letter. It wouldn't have worked, Joe. I don't know. I tried. But I will tell you, and I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can, it's unusual to pass laws as legislators. Some legislators go through 10 years and maybe they get one, or maybe they didn't get any, or it's tough. Carmen had 3. Carmen was the one who put together the first local law prohibiting texting in cars. And I remember that. And there was a passion behind it, a drive, and Carmen had that. And, he didn't stop there, and some people might have. Then it was cyberbullying. And you worked on that, and you worked very hard. And then the third one that you worked, I think, the most on was on the pawnbrokers, if I'm not mistaken. You worked a long time on that one. So, he is a hard worker. Webster Central School District, you are very lucky to have Carmen Gamina, because I know that this is his passion. I know that this is where he wants to be, even though we would like to have him back in this legislature. No offense, Matt, you're okay. I know we would like to have him back, but he's not coming back. And he's going on, as the pastor said tonight, he has found his calling, and his calling is that school district. And I know he's going to do great for those people out there. So it is with a great honor tonight that I present you with this really cool plaque with your name on it, spelled right. I made sure of that. Nice job, guys. And I want to present this to you on behalf of the entire County Ledge. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeff. First of all, Webster's, the LD District 8 is in amazing hands. Matt, I can't wait to see what you do. You're an amazing young man. And I say young man, not that, but you know what? You're a young man. You're the age of one of my students, and I can't wait to see what you do in Webster. And really, there are 2 words that I want to just leave you with, and that is gratitude and kindness. I am so grateful for the 8 years that I've had in this body, and I have come to know many of you on both sides of the aisle, and I'm so proud to call you such close friends. I am not here with
without, whether it's Carrie's influence or Justin's influence. I'm not here without Anthony and without Dan's mentoring. So I am incredibly grateful. Hopefully and I'm grateful for your kindness. And it has been an honor to serve the 30,000 people in LD8. And I can't wait. It is my passion. I am in my dream job at the moment as superintendent of Webster, and it's unfortunate that I can't continue to do both. But I wanted to stay married, so I needed to take a. But your friendship and your guidance has meant the world to me. And on a personal note, Mr. President, you have. There aren't too many times that I can say that I look up to people, and I look to their influence on my life and what it's meant to me. And you are a friend that has had that type of influence on me, and I appreciate all that you've done. So thank you, everybody, and I do appreciate this. And God bless. Thank you.
Now official, Matt, you are now in charge. At this time, we'll recess for the purpose of holding the public hearing. I declare open the public hearing on resolution intro number 200 of 2015, entitled Adopting the 2016-2021 Capital Improvement Program.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
I now declare that public hearing closed, and I will reconvene the July 14th, 2015 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. Legislators, you have in your folders the approved minutes from the last cycle. There are no formal committee reports for this evening. We will now hold open the public forum. We have several speakers registered to address the legislature. Madam Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit through the back of the chambers. Thank you for your cooperation. Our first 3 speakers tonight are Paul Furcella, Catherine White, and Dennis Kindred.
I am Paul Furcella. The poor service from Monroe County continues. A bit over a month ago, I called the Monroe County Clerk's office to inquire about a certain matter, and I observed cold indifference from a certain worker there. I strongly encourage every voter here to note this and vote appropriately at the next general election.
Good evening. My name is Catherine White. I live on Colby Street in the town of Sweden. My husband Peter and I have lived at our present address for almost 52 years, and we were living there when around 20 families were forced out of their beloved homes to make the parcel which is now known as Northampton Park. Excuse me. The Friends of Northampton Park have been vilified as NIMBYs, which we are not, as we would be fighting just as hard to protect the park if it was set in Mendon Ponds or in any of our other county parks. We've also been falsely accused of being against 4-H endeavors, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm speaking to you tonight as a member of the Friends of Northampton in our continuing quest to right the wrongs of citing the Monroe County Fair in our beautiful park, and to point out once again the numerous illegal actions which have occurred in doing so. I'm sure you're as delighted to see us as we are to be here. Last year we presented to this body a large, detailed investigative report which, if you had read it, would have shown, number one, Monroe County, as contractor for the Monroe County Fair, violated several New York State DEC laws, which is a crime. Number 2, official documents were altered after signatures were notarized for the benefit of Representative Colby's new venture, also a crime. Many sections of the license and operating agreement were never adhered to, which highlighted malfeasance and complete lack of oversight. Number 4, as taxpayers, we had the right to see and demanded to see the alleged advertising bids for and prevailing wages paid for the construction of the only structure which has been completed, which was the horse arena. This is only a partial listing of wrongdoings. We have never received any answers. In an article in the Rochester DNC the next day, which recounted the issues brought forth at the legislative meeting, Representative Steve Tutorello was quoted as saying he did not have a chance to read the presented document. Amazingly, he was quoted just shortly after as saying, despite not having read it, that he contained a lot of accusations and assumptions. County spokesman Justin Fiesel declined to comment, which appears to be the county administration's way of handling many thorny issues these days. So just to make clear our reason for being here tonight, we are here to have on record and in your hands the evidence that you have refused to act on, so that when a higher authority comes looking, you will not be able to say that you did not know. Thank you.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Dennis Kinder, and I'm sure you know why. Most of you know why I'm here tonight. I'm not going to paraphrase what other people are going to be presenting to you tonight, but just to point out that our purpose here tonight is twofold. One is to say when individuals come to look, you will not be able to say, I did not know. And number 2, when the lawsuits are filed in relation to the production of the Monroe County Fair relating to bodily injury, environmental contamination, or negligence, Monroe County and the MCFRA are now on notice and can be held strictly liable for their actions or failure to act on the information that we are disclosing tonight. A couple of things that have arisen since we last spoke to you. Bounce checks and payment for the Monroe County Fair. In the leaflets that will be handed out, you're going to see a copy of a check that was sent to us as part of a FOIL from Justin Fiesel, requesting evidence of payments made by the MCFRA to the county. We took a close look at the particular check and how ineligible the supposed back of number check 2278, issued on 8/23/13, appeared. A common trick for fraudsters is to use the backs of clear checks, especially if they are not legible, with the fronts of bounce checks. So we requested legible copies of the backs of these checks. Well, look what we found. That check bounced for $26,000 and was replaced by check number 2286 on 9/10/13. Some people might assume that Mr. Field was trying to hide something from us, possibly protect the fund. Well, we'll let others make that determination. Take a look at check number 2375 for $24,815. This was the final check, we believe, was issued in final payment for the county and paid for it. The check was issued on February 10th, 2014, 7 months after the work was done and paid for by us, the taxpayers. Another thing to look at is the Town of Greece bandwagon. You're going to see in here that one of your fellow legislators didn't pay anything for it in 2013, and he got a better rate than anybody else in the entire world has ever gotten for that bandwagon. He only paid $250. The town of Pittsburgh pays $700, a municipality. So we know what's going on, and tonight you're going to see some of the other issues that we found. So good luck.
Our next 3 speakers are Lisa Kindred, Chris Haig, and Lucinda Haig.
Good evening. I'm here to address the possession of Northampton Park and Ski Lodge by the Monroe County Fair/Agricultural Festival. At the June 11, 2013 legislature meeting, Larry Staub is quoted as saying, "You talk about 10 days, 4 of those days would be the Monroe County Fair." So the 2013 fair was held as promised, only 4 days, but the lodge was reserved for 15 days. The 2014 fair was also held for 4 days, but the lodge was reserved for 18 days. This August 2015, the fair will again be held for only 4 days. However, the ski lodge is now reserved from July 22nd through August 13 or 14. Using primitive math skills, that equals 23 or 24 days, the lodge will be closed to the general public because of the fair. Each year, the ski lodge and a portion of the park is unavailable to the public several days before and several days after the fair due to setting up and tearing down equipment. Last year, at least one individual was denied entry to the park the night before the fair. A police report was filed because the park should not have been closed to anyone at that time. And the cement blockades were not removed until the end of December, 5 months after the fair. Mr. Staub, were you lying to us about using the park for only 4 days a year to hold the fair? But wait, there's more. Are you aware that the county actually loses money during the fair? The online reservation fee for the ski lodge in Northampton Park is $143 per weekend day, due at the time of reservation. The MCFRA has never paid a penny for lodge rental, and their donation from ticket sales is less than 1/2 the standard rental fee required by all other citizens, meaning you and me. Thanks for your attention.
I am Lucinda Haig and have lived in Ogden for more than 30 years. As a member of the Friends of Northampton Park, I'm here to share with you portions of a letter that will soon find its way to New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli. We are writing to request that your office investigate 2 private enterprises which operate within Monroe County's Northampton Park, that is Springdale Farm and the Monroe County Agricultural Fair. We found a significant number of irregularities related to these operations. At Springdale Farm, there are 2 publicly funded robotic milking stations. The appearance, if not actual, use of public resources for private gain by a county official must be investigated. In addition, we have evidence that the terms and conditions of the contracts are not being met and that county officials are not effectively monitoring the contracts. The county has indicated in writing that the records which are required under the operating agreement do not even exist. Regarding the fair, Monroe County Fair and Recreation Association in 2013 was awarded the contract by Monroe County. This organization's own records indicated that it was in significant financial distress. However, the county still awarded the contract to an entity which at the time of the award did not have the financial resources to fulfill its obligations under the RFP. It also appears that the contract was specifically designed to accommodate the declining financial condition of the association, and that the financial requirements and commitments that were included in the RFP were changed or omitted from the actual contract. Additionally, the contract was altered and the amounts of funds required by the county was inexplicably reduced. There is no evidence that the parties involved actually agreed to the alterations, as there would be with an amendment, since the party signatures and the dates of those signatures on the altered documents are exactly the same as those found on the original contract. Regarding prevailing wage and contracts, we have proof that the construction of structures in our park were done without advertising for any bids, without bids themselves, and the prevailing wages were not paid to workers, and there is a case number included from the New York State Department of Labor. In this instance, a legislator simply hired his next-door neighbor to construct the structures. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Haig. I've submitted a report, a 6-page report, on the tractor pull at the Monroe County Fair at Northampton Park last August, and I'm submitting it for the record. Larry Staub said the type of tractor pulls anticipated for this agricultural festival are not the giant souped-up, fire-breathing, smoke-emitting monster tractor pulls. They're more low-key. We're talking about farm tractors, and he repeatedly said lawnmowers. Well, it showed up again, another monster tractor with it emitted a 40-foot plume of thick black smoke. So please read my report. The details are in there. Larry Stubb also said that the noise levels would be limited to 90 decibels, which is roughly the sound output of a subway or a passing motorcycle. The announcer at the tractor pull, he even said, and I quote, "As you can see, the exhaust is nothing but straight pipes. This is going to be really loud. Cover your ears." In my report, I've included a chart of pictures of all these drag rails and pictures of the sound level meter. Most of the sound was as high as 122 decibels. Please read the report. All the pictures of these drag rails are in there. All the pictures of the dB meter are in there. A half a mile away from the park, the sound level was still 79 decibels. There's a picture of that in here too. I've attached a publication by the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association about noise. They say noise can be very damaging to hearing. Both the level of noise and the length that you listen to the noise can put you at risk for noise-induced hearing loss. They say in here, sounds that are louder than 85 decibels can cause permanent hearing loss. And they list the sound decibels, 120 decibels, which is what we measured at Northampton Park, they call painful. And they equate that to a jet plane takeoff. In conclusion, if any one of us did these things in a Monroe County Park, we would be arrested and our vehicle towed away. Why is the Fair Association being allowed to do things in a Monroe County Park that are clearly not legal? Is Northampton Park a green space to be treasured or a racetrack to be abused? Why was the public exposed to and not made aware of these dangers in a Monroe County Park? What does a smoke-belching race tractor or drag rails with V8 engines without exhaust systems have to do with an agricultural festival for families? Why is the wildlife and surrounding neighborhood being exposed to this detrimental noise? Why is Monroe County in the entertainment business at taxpayers' expense? Is this what you had in mind when some of you said, I'm doing this for the kids?
Our next three speakers are Janet O'Connor, Frank Rikoski, and Grant Essler.
My name is Janet Connor. I own property and I've lived in the town of Ogden in Monroe County for 9 years. On July 8th, the Channel 8 News carried a story about a potential new park in Pittsford. Bill Smith, Pittsford Town Supervisor, apparently has indicated that the park is not to be conventional, but will keep the land in its current state and take advantage of unused green space. Wendy Weenan of Pittsford was quoted as saying, "I think that any kind of land that we can have for the kids and for the environment is great." We wish Monroe County and Ogden Town officials felt this way about Northampton Park. They, for the most part, have disregarded the fact that there are designated federal wetlands in Northampton Park and the Department of Agricultural Studies that specifically state that the area used for the fair is not suitable for any kind of buildings. Why do you continue to peddle this site as an appropriate site for the Monroe County Fair? Mr. Larry Staub specifically and unequivocally stated that if there was a Monroe County Fair held in Northampton Park, the site would be returned to its pre-fair appearance. The concrete barriers for the tractor pull were placed in July of 2014. They were not removed. On October 1, 2014, I sent the first of 2 letters to Mr. Staub asking for their removal. A second letter was sent after December 25, 2014, requesting that the concrete barriers be removed and putting the county on notice that from that point forward, if anyone was injured on the huge concrete barriers, kids in particular, that Monroe County would be liable. The county has now held 2 poorly attended Monroe County fairs or festivals at the Northampton Park, and we are heading for a third. The county has given in excess of $50,000 of Monroe County taxpayer money per year to support the activities of the private entity known as the Monroe County Fair and Recreation Association. This association is not looking out for our public park. Noise levels have exceeded agreed upon standards. Last year, as well as the previous year, decibel level readings were taken during the fair, and they exceeded the acceptable limits with the tractor pulls and in 2014 the pumpkin catapults. This fair has been touted as a 4-H event, but there's not even going to be a 4-H horse show this year. I and others like me continue to view this as an abuse of public park. It seems unreasonable for me to build new structures in Northampton Park when the ones that are there are not properly maintained. Damage to trails due to wetness could be alleviated if the trails were properly maintained and sun was able to reach the trails to dry them out. I request that the county and the town of Ogden reconsider the choice of location for the Monroe County Fair. This private entity, the Monroe County Fair Rec Association, has the ability to use the dome for the fair now and in the future, or find a more suitable venue that is not going to drain the dollars out of the taxpayers' pockets or do further damage to Northampton Park. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Frank Rakowski. I live in Ogden. I'm speaking to you as both a citizen and a friend of Northampton. I have 3 questions for you. This good sequence following Janet. If MCC's Agricultural and Life Sciences Institute, from their website, has its purpose to teach about land use, agriculture, and farmland, and the stated case for an agricultural festival is to teach and experience these same ideas, isn't the best place for a county fair at MCC campus? MCC has the parking and facilities. School is out during August. It'd be a great synergy to put the fair there. The county got a $1,000 return, 10% of gate receipts, from the $50,000 it invested yearly with the private MCFRA. There is no compelling financial reason not to try something new. I request that you seriously consider this proposal, and I won't even submit a consulting bill for it. 2, if the members of county government are really trying to bring in tax revenue and jobs into this area, why are sites and businesses created to compete and drive out private enterprise? The specific example here is building and renting out party house facilities for weddings and events, which has shut down private party houses. I'm sure you can all think of the ones that used to exist and don't anymore. They can't compete because the money you use comes from the taxpayer. Government has no profit motive, does not pay taxes, and so can charge less, driving private business away. Government has no mandate, as we hear a lot about, from the people to be in these businesses and should get out of running businesses they are not good at. 3rd point, all the money you spend, give away, use for self-promotion, such as Larry Staub and Maggie Brooks present a concert series at the park, comes from the taxpayers. I'd like to see our name up there instead. The fact that there are grants to be had, COMITA money for favored projects, extra money to dole out, all mean people are overtaxed to begin with. They know this and they're not happy. They leave the state, we know. So the last question is, how do you think this looks when people are deciding who to vote for next time? Thank you.
Hello, members of the Monroe County Legislature and visitors. Happy Bastille Day this July 14th, 2015. My name is Grant Essler. I live very near Northampton Park and visit the park several times each week, walking or skiing with my wife and dogs. Bastille Day commemorates the rising up of the French citizens against bad behavior of government officials who use their office for their own enrichment and benefit. The Friends of Northampton Park have been investigating, publicizing, and protesting the self-serving bad behavior and bad decision-making of our governmental officials for more than 2 years, since the intent to move the county fair to Northampton Park became public. It's timely that we're here today. The subject of my talk is an instance of cronyism and poor management that's evidenced by a letter from Ralph Gleason a public work wage investigator of the New York State Department of Labor, to Stable Fences and Vineyards, LLC, 326 Colby Street, Spencerport, New York, dated July 28, 2014. It was written to the attention of Doug Streeter, and the subject was failure to pay the prevailing wage on a project, the installation of a 135 by 300 horse riding area at Northampton Park. The problem this exemplified was the poor way the Monroe County Fair has been managed and the scofflaw practices and broken promises of the Monroe County Fair Association. The project was not put out for bid. It was performed by our legislator's neighbor on Colby Street with no specifications for the project addressing materials, surface, fence height, etc. Now, the meeting notes for the Monroe County Legislature, the meeting of June 11, 2013, 2 years ago, show the County Parks Director assuring the legislature about the construction of the facilities in the park as follows. Now, this is a quote from the meeting minutes. The improvements will be done by the county with funds provided by the Fair Association through this gift. We're not talking about turning over a section of the park for the Fair Association to build willy-nilly or to build whatever the heck they want. We're talking about the Parks Department through the proper procedures, public works laws, public bidding laws, through the use of the Wicks law, if it's applicable, to make these improvements. This instance of having the only visible construction, the horse arena, built, as the Parks Director said, willy-nilly, outside the county's normal bid process, certainly does put this assurance in doubt, along with so many other promises about the fair and its movement to Northampton Park. Thank you for your attention. We won't be singing any excerpts from Les Mis.
Our final speaker is Tom Gregory.
Well, I didn't know today was Bastille Day, but I have an opposite message. I've had very good success with government. When Jack Doyle was elected, I think he was first appointed. From that period to the forward, I've stood usually over in that corner over there and have been active with this legislative body, except for a period of about 6 months when I was doing a litigation. I didn't come here to defend county government today, not directly. I actually came here to tell you a story that I've had recently with the county clerk's office, which is very positive. I bought a truck, and the truck had sat in a barn for 20 years, and I was having a hard time getting the title. The title was actually irregular in that a long time ago, the state of New York used 13 numbers rather than, I believe, it's 16 numbers today. And not only that, but the vehicle hadn't been registered for 20 years. I had waited about 12 weeks, and hadn't gotten my title. So I had spoken with the clerks at the motor vehicle department, and they routinely and very politely and very competently made calls to Albany and said, well, give it another week or two, and with no result. So I eventually went down to the county clerk's office and asked to speak with the county clerk. We can't say their names in the legislative chambers. And I was assigned, introduced with one of the commissioners, I think they were called, for the motor vehicle department, a man named Richard, who directs that. He made the appropriate phone calls and assured me that I would have my title within a week, and his word was exactly correct. All done politely, all done routinely, and all done competently. With my time with this county legislature, and I'll sum up quickly, I've written many reports. I've had many dealings with legislators on both sides of the aisle, both adversarial as well as positive and supportive. I'll tell you honestly, I think we've got great government. I think a lot of the complainants that we have are, it's good that they can express their views, but I don't think that should be taken as signatory against this government that we have here. Thank you very much.
This concludes the public forum.
At this time, we'll recess the July 14, 2015 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature and convene the Pure Water District Administration Board for the Irondequoit Bay South Central Pure Waters District. The clerk at this time will please note the attendance and read the first item on the agenda.
PWeb Agenda Item Number 1, Referral 15-0192.
It is moved by Legislator Marinetti. It is seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is a motion to adopt. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. Next item, please.
PWeb Agenda Item 2, Referral 15-0194.
Moved by Legislator Marinetti, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is a motion to adopt. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. We will now recess the Irondequoit Bay South Central Pure Waters District, and we will adjourn the Public Pure Waters Administration Board. The July 14, 2015 meeting of the Legislature is now reconvened. We will now proceed with the considerations of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number...
Legislator Tucciarella.
I would like to rise to make a motion that we move the agenda with the exceptions of number 1, 2, and 17, please.
1, 2, and 17. Do I have a second? It is seconded by Legislator Andrews. On the motion to move the agenda other than items 1, 2, and 17, is there any discussion? Yes. I was going to give you time, Paul. Legislator Haney.
Since item number 1 is lifted from the table, it's going to be considered as item number 2 separately. I don't think item number 1 can be included in the package.
Item number 1 we are going to vote on. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to communicate to the clerk because she can't see me, but I said items numbers 1, 2, and 17 are still in play. Everything else is out. So, but thank you for noticing that. Okay. They finally caught on to my signals. Is there any discussion other than that for moving the agenda? If they're not, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. We'll now move on to the agenda. Item number 1.
Item number 1, Referral 15-0156.
It is moved by Legislator Howland. It is seconded by Legislator Ansello, Michike, Boyce, Valerio, Colby, Marinetti. Oh, and it's seconded by Legislator Yolovich. I'm sorry, I got that a little wrong there. I'm sorry, old age. This is the motion to lift from the table. All in favor? Any opposed? The item carries. Next item.
Item number 2, Referral 15-0156.
It is moved by Legislators Howland, Ansello, Michike, Boyce, Valerio, Colby, and Marinetti, and it is seconded by Legislator Yolovich. There, we got it right that time. Nice job. This is the motion to adopt. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. The adoption of the CIP, while technically only a planning document, basically is one of the few times that the legislature gets the opportunity to really address individual projects. Because anything that's adopted tonight as part of the 2016 CIP, we know will be dropped on our desks at around 10 o'clock on the night of the December meeting, and will be handed a situation in which we either have to vote for the whole batch of projects or vote against them. So the CIP actually warrants individual attention to any projects that may cause concern. In that light, Mr. President, I'd like to offer an amendment, and I will pause while it's being circulated.
Legislator Haney, do I have a second to the motion? Thank you.
The
Second by
amendment,
legislator Flagler Mitchell. Has everybody got them yet? Oh, hang on a second. Gene, did you get the second? Okay. What's that? Mr. Haney, the floor is yours.
thank you, Mr. President. I'm moving to delete from the capital improvement project the project titled the BHTL, that's Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road, property acquisition. This is a proposal to spend $1 million to purchase what some people may be familiar with as a very large white, rather stately white house that I believe is currently being used for offices. Based on the information that was shared with the planning board when this was being considered, this property will not be used in any of the academic programs of the college, but instead will be used as offices for the Community College Foundation, which apparently currently is in rented space on the west side of Henrietta Road. My point, Mr. President, is that with all the financial constraints that we're operating under, that to spend $1 million to acquire a piece of property, which coincidentally is assessed for $700,000, but to spend $1 million to purchase a piece of property to serve as the offices for the Monroe Community College Foundation is inappropriate. My fellow legislators will recall that only a month or two ago, we accepted a gift from the foundation of $1 million to help fund the initial cost overruns of the new Damon campus. I would suggest, Mr. President, that if the foundation wants this stately piece of property for its offices, that the foundation could very well buy the property itself and not involve the county in the expenditure of these monies. And therefore, I would hope that the legislature would delete the project from the CIP for the year 2016.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, I'll move to a roll call vote.
On the amendment, Mr. Tucciarello? No. Ms. Andrews? No. Mr. Ansello? No. Mr. Baroth? No. Ms. Boyce? No. Dr. Carbone? No. Mr. Colby? No. Mr. Daniele? No. Mr. Delahanty? No. Mrs. Draw? Mr. Flagler Mitchell? No. Mr. Gamble? Mr. Haney? No. Mr. Howland?
You just threw the whole cadence right off. It's okay. I've done that a couple times tonight. Go ahead. Have we recorded the vote properly at this time?
I have Mr. Haney as a no, or a yes. I'm sorry. Mr. Howland. Ms. Kaylee. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Mr. Marionetti. Mr. Michike. Mr. Morelli. Dr. Quattro? Mr. Rocco? Mrs. Stick? Ms. Taylor? Mr. Turp? Mrs. Valerio? Mr. Wilcox? Mr. Yolovich? President Adair?
No.
7 to 22, amendment fails.
Thank you. Back to the main motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a second amendment to offer, and hopefully I'll remember to vote the right way on this one.
I'm not moving. Good. Thank you. Mr. Haney, is there a second to your amendment? Thank you. Mr. Morelli is the second.
Mr. President, the subject of this amendment...
Hang on a second, Legislator Haney. I just want to make sure he's got it. Legislator Haney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the subject of this amendment is the project on page 54, which is to commit $37,750,000 to improvements at the Seneca Park Zoo. The intent of the amendment is not to block or delete the project. The intent of the amendment is to move the project forward 1 year, so that instead of starting in 2016, which means the bonding would be voted on this November, but at our December meeting this fall, it would move the project forward so that it started in the year 2017. The reason I'm suggesting this, Mr. President, is this is a very significant project. At $37,750,000, it may well be the largest single project in the CIP. And to my knowledge, this project has not had any discussion whatsoever in this legislative body or in any of its committees or indeed in the community. I attended the informational meeting at Seneca Park that was held, I forget it was late April or early May, and it appeared from the information that was being shared that night that this is only an initial phase of what is intended to be a much bigger project for the zoo, so that I would expect that the ultimate cost of this is going to be well more than $37,750,000. In addition, it's been traditional in the last several years that the Seneca Park Zoological Society participate with the county in the capital projects that are conducted at the Seneca Park Zoo. The Zoological Society, to this point, has made no such commitment, and that evening at the Seneca Park, when I asked the director of the Zoological Society about that, I basically received a no comment answer. This November, Mr. President, the voters of this county are going to elect a new county executive, and they're going to elect a fair number of new members to this county legislature. I suggest to my colleagues that for a project of this size that has not had any real discussion in the community and that is going to have significant financial impacts for years to come, that the project be delayed 1 year so that whoever is elected county executive in November and the new incoming legislature that is going to have to take responsibility for the fiscal implications of this project, so that these new governmental representatives will have an opportunity to review and consider the merits of this proposal. I am not speaking against the proposal per se. I am merely suggesting that the project be delayed 1 year so that the newly elected executive branch of government and the newly elected legislative branch of government that will take office here in January, after both you and I and a number of the other members of this body are gone, will have an opportunity to consider this project, which to this point has had no active discussion either in this chamber or in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Haney. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Legislator Boyce.
I rise in opposition to Mr. Haney's amendment. I do sit on the board of the Seneca Park Zoological Society as a member, non-voting member, but I'm there for all the discussions. And I feel like this would significantly have a devastating effect to possibly our fundraising efforts as far as the Zoological Society, and I believe that some of the statements that Mr. Haney stated this evening on the record were inappropriate or not factual in nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Boyce. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, I'll move to a roll call vote.
On the amendment, Mr. Tucciarello.
No.
Ms. Andrews? Yes. Mr. Ansello? No. Mr. Baroth? Yes. Ms. Boyce? No. Dr. Carbone? No. Mr. Colby? No. Mr. Daniele? No. Mr. Delahanty? No. Mrs. Draw? No. Mr. Flagler Mitchell? No. Mr. Gamble? Yes. Mr. Haney? Mr. Howland? No. Ms. Cayley? Yes. Mr. John Lightfoot? Yes. Mr. Willie Lightfoot? Yes. Mr. Marionetti? No. Mr. Michike? No. Mr. Morelli? Yes. Dr. Quattro? No. Mr. Rocco? No. Mrs. Stick? Yes. Ms. Taylor? No. Mr. Terp? Mrs. Valerio? No. Mr. Wilcox? Yes. Mr. Yolovich? No. President Adair?
No.
10 to 19, amendment fails.
Back to the main motion. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Stick.
Mr. President, I rise to make an amendment.
Legislator Stick, do you have a second to this motion? It is seconded by Legislator Andrews. Legislator Stick, the floor is yours.
Mr. President, I'm very concerned about the condition of this bridge in Powder Mills Park. The New York State Department of Transportation has defined it as deficient, and due to the deterioration of this bridge, I believe the construction should begin sooner than later. Therefore, I offer this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, a vote on the amendment will be a roll call vote.
On the amendment, Mr. Tucciarello?
No.
Ms. Andrews? Yes. Mr. Ansello? No. Mr. Baroth? No. Ms. Boyce? No. Dr. Carbone? No. Mr. Colby?
No.
Mr. Daniele? No. Mr. Delahanty?
No.
Mrs. Draw? No. Mr. Flagler Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Gamble? Yes. Mr. Haney? Mr. Howland? No. Ms. Cayley? Yes. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Mr. Marionetti. Mr. Michike. Mr. Morelli. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mrs. Stick. Ms. Taylor. Mr. Terp. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Yolovich. President Adair.
No.
1118, amendment fails.
Back to the main motion. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, I will move to a roll call vote.
On the main motion, Mr. Tucciarello.
Yes.
Ms. Andrews. Yes. Mr. Ansello. Yes. Mr. Baroth. Yes. Ms. Boyce. Yes. Dr. Carbone. Yes. Mr. Colby. Yes. Mr. Daniele. Yes. Mr. Delahanty. Yes. Mrs. Draw. Yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. Yes. Mr. Gamble. Yes. Mr. Haney. Yes. Mr. Howland. Yes. Ms. Cayley. Mr. John Lightfoot. Yes. Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Yes. Mr. Marionetti. Yes. Mr. Michike. Yes. Mr. Morelli. Yes. Dr. Quattro. Yes. Mr. Rocco. Yes. Mrs. Stick. Yes. Ms. Taylor. Yes. Mr. Terp. Yes. Mrs. Valerio. Yes. Mr. Wilcox. Yes. Mr. Yolovich. President Adair.
Yes.
29 to 0, resolution passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 17.
Item number 17, referral 15-0195.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. The low bid that's being awarded in this case is for $326,900. My understanding is that at the Transportation Committee meeting, it was reported that the engineer's estimate for the project was $199,000. I'm wondering if we could get some explanation as to why the project is coming in at more than 50% over the engineer's estimate.
Okay. Through the President, the technology that we're using here in terms of as a reline, first of all, there's 30 foot of fill over the pipe. And the pipe size is about a 10-foot diameter pipe, so there's a limited number of options that we could choose. We didn't want to replace the structure; would have caused significant impact to the area, and the size of the pipe limited what we could do with a relining of the pipe. And we chose a method that was, although used throughout in some places in the state as well as the country. There is not a lot of people that utilize this, and it's this technology. And our original estimate from the vendor that was going to be probably doing the work gave our engineer a price that then they changed their price when they put in a bid. So we were left with a higher than our engineer estimate bid. The four bidders, as you can see, that did bid on it were all well over the engineer's estimate as well, and this was the lowest one, but they were all in the $320,000 to $400,000 range. So we still felt that this was a good method to use and the right treatment for this location.
Through the chair, did the initial vendor, I mean, it's not the winning vendor, but the initial vendor, did they in effect suck us into this technology with a low-ball price?
Through the chair, when I say the vendor, it's the pipe vendor that we're looking to have the pipe from. The contractors that bid on it all would use the same vendor. So it's somewhat unique. And in fact, the low bidder has actually already come in and came up with a value engineering proposal that they'd like us to consider that we're looking at now.
So again, through the chair, in your professional judgment, Mr. Rice, $327,000 is a reasonable price for us to be paying?
Through the president, in my opinion, yes.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. President, I would like to make note that similar in fashion to a previous referral considered by this body involving Ironwood Heavy Highway LLC, to make note that Mr. William G. Baumann, who is the Secretary and the CFO of Ironwood Heavy Highway LLC, is in fact an appointee of this legislature to the Internal Audit Committee. Mr. Baumann will be informed that if any business comes before the Audit Committee regarding any of the business that Ironwood does with the county, he must recuse himself.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. There being no unfinished business tonight, Legislator Tucciarello.
Mr. President, we stand adjourned until 6 p.m. Tuesday, August 11th, 2015. Thank you all.